There we go. Going on, fellas?
All right, all right.
Yeah, hey, we already got the live going. What
Good.
y'all? What's y'all's initial reactions right here? Because Shaw, I think you missed it when they announced that they had Ohio State jump Georgia for that
Yeah.
#1 spot.
Yeah. I think that's right. You know what I'm saying? Like Georgia really ain't played nobody yet. And I'll give Ohio State credit for knocking off two top 25 teams. But honestly, the separation between these two teams, it's looking like it's gonna be them in the end. But see, with Brock Bowers being gone, uh Marvin Harrison Jr. is now the best player the best receiving player between the two teams. I'm gonna go equal with the quarterbacks. I can go, mano e mano, O line, D line, secondary, whole 9 yards. I'm with it, man. I'm with it. I still don't think Georgia has all the juice, but at the same time, you know,
They show flashes.
they
They
do,
use
man.
flashes of
When
like
they
what they
hot, they
used to look
hot.
like.
I don't know. But the good news is all these teams are gonna get tested here. These next couple of weeks are gonna be great. Um, it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch as it goes on. But my question is Bama's only path is to win the SEC, right?
Yeah, at this
That's the only
point,
path. They
to
got to
sneak
win
in
out,
there
right?
because the fact that they still put you still got Oregon right there and Washington at 5 and 6. They're
Yeah.
giving that matchup a lot of credit right now. And if I'm looking at this correctly, I don't think it's updated on here yet. I'm still waiting to get the official feed from it. But
Right.
yeah, with Bama being at 8, you still got Texas in front of them also, which is interesting. What's your thoughts, Drew?
I'm a little shocked by it. To me, I would not have put Ohio State at #1. I just have not seen it yet, just as a complete team, as a complete schedule. I mean, to me, I think if you're the top dog like Georgia is, you got to be beaten and get knocked off the top spot. So I understand what they've been doing this season, but to me, I would have it Georgia #1, Michigan still above Ohio State #3, Florida State #4. Because I mean, right now Michigan is just putting up numbers that I think Ohio State will struggle against. I've not seen Ohio State, to me, in my eyes, go up against a top tier defense. And that's one thing I'm really looking at them to see right there. And I've seen them struggle against average defenses, getting things moving. So to me, I think that it's a good top 6. Looking at Bama's path, of course, they're gonna need teams to lose and still win out for Bama to get in there. So they're on the outsides looking in, but I'm just kind of shocked at this first top ranking. I was not expecting the jump, the mix up in it, which is interesting.
One of the things that Ohio State, Michigan, they're gonna play. You know, it's the last game of the regular season in the Big Ten, rivalry game, right? All that. My question is, does the loser of that game move out of the top 4, right? How far does the loser of that game go away? Are they out to allow the winner of Oregon, Washington in the Pac-2 championship to move in, right? How much weight are we putting? That's why this first ranking is always very interesting to me, because it lets us know kind of what the committee feels, but it's also a precursor to what you should end up seeing toward the end when it's time to come out with those final rankings. I can't remember a year where one Bama was this far out of it and had a chance to make it back in, which they do, but the road is going to be tough. But there's so many other teams in front of them that the committee obviously thinks really high of. Um, you know, what happens to the loser of Ohio State, Michigan? Do they drop out of the top 4? That's one of the questions I really want to know the answer to. But we're
Yeah,
not.
and another thing that's interesting is that I think they're holding Ohio State, giving them a lot of credit for that win against Penn State and that win again at Notre Dame. I think that's probably what propelled them to jump Georgia, even though you really hadn't seen anything from Georgia to make you think that, hey, they should not be up there. But I think that's where the credit is getting played at. Is you went on the road and took care of Notre Dame, albeit it was a very close game to the very end, and then handling Penn State, going ahead and knocking them off also. Another thing right now with Michigan, sitting in here and watching looking at Michigan at 3, Michigan still has to play Penn State also. And they got to go to Penn State to play them. So that's another
out, baby.
Yeah, that's another interesting one to keep an eye on coming up here in the next 2 weeks. Especially with them sitting in that 3rd spot. I thought they were going to give Florida State a little bit more credit, but I guess because of those shaky games that Florida State had, maybe that's what they kind of looked at and was like, hey, we're just going to put you at 4 and have you sit there until you basically letting Florida State know, like, hey, if you take a loss, you out. You're not in it anymore.
They waiting for them to go away. And, and that's probably because they hadn't been around so long. See, here's part of my issue with this, and that's even with Bama being up at the top. You know what I'm saying? So many of these schools, Bama included, they get so much credit for what they did last year and the year before last, the year before that, right? This is about how do you look today? You know what I'm saying? Who's, the name, take the sticker off the helmet, and let's talk about who we think is the absolute best team today. Now, if I'm in that committee room, it would be tough, but I would absolutely have to give Florida State more love. Florida State would have to be 3. You'd have to push Michigan to 4 if it was me, and at least give Florida State number 3. Matter of fact, there really is not too much reason to not say Florida State is not number 1. Why not? Why are they not number 1? One of y'all tell me why they're not.
I guess it's got to get a Boston College game. I mean, you really got to think about a game they really struggled against. But to me, I mean, I don't see why not. I truly don't. When I look at these teams, it really seems like the most iffy team is Michigan. I like them at 4, but like I said, I'm shocked on this one right here. I really don't have much to say on this one. I'm like, I really thought it was gonna go out playing out way different than this right here.
I'll tell you what, hold on real quick, Sean.
Go ahead.
On that Florida State note, I wonder. You got it's the 2 games that hurt them, the Boston College one and then the Clemson game, especially with how bad Clemson has looked of late. The fact that you struggled with that one and you had to go to overtime to win that game, I think that's what hurt them more so. But even after that, they've righted the ship. They've looked dominant ever since then.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia's done the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how you end up needing Brock Bowers to become Superman in the 4th quarter to get you out of that game. You know what I'm saying? Like, none of these teams have just been completely dominant. So I get it. It's tough. You got to pick 1, 2, 3, 4. It almost doesn't really matter because this stuff is going to shake itself out. But if Oregon play Ohio State right now on a neutral site, what do you think the outcome going to be, Drew?
I would have to go to Ohio State right now just because I think they have the most unstoppable player.
Correct.
I don't think that Oregon can be able to stop the duel between the quarterback McCord and Harrison. So I mean, I think that give Ohio State that nod. But I mean, I'm right there with you. I don't think Oregon should be in the top 6 or 4 or 5. I think they're right where they need to be. I think they have the best 1-loss team on the board. And to me, their loss really could be both ways. If you hit that field goal, they could be an undefeated team. So
correct.
It's really, really interesting when you think about Oregon's team, but to me, when I look at all 4 of these teams, I just don't see how you can take. I know strength of schedule plays a huge factor. I just don't see how you can take Ohio State and put them at 1. That's my biggest concern. I understand that they got a lot to prove. They got a lot of stuff going on, but Ohio State does not look perfect this season. To just say, okay, we're going to jump Georgia, we're going to jump Michigan. I think if they have to look at all 3 of them, then I think right now Georgia should be number 1. Just because I think they have the best defense in the country. I think when they show up to the game and they actually have momentum and motivation to play for, they're going to put out the best performance. Now, with them not having Brock Bowers, it's going to be very, very interesting in how they finish this season, which everybody's going to be interested in how they finish the season. To me, it's going to matter the most about who's going to finish this season with the less chinks on their armor. That's really what it's going to figure about.
Yeah, and Georgia's got a chance to struggle this weekend.
Right.
If they struggle, what happens, right? Florida State, they don't really have a lot more resistance on their schedule. They have some. They still got to play Miami. But I think they've got the least amount of resistance when it comes down to getting there. Because, of course, Michigan and Ohio State have to play. And I'm still sitting up here trying to figure out the loser of that game with the resume that they have. Is it enough to knock them out of the top 4 with what's behind them? I don't know, because Washington and Oregon have to play again.
Right.
The winner of that game, assuming that they're both sitting where they are right now when they get there to the Pac-2 championship game, that the loser of that game, I can say is categorically going to be out. Winner's going to be in. Florida State, easiest path. Georgia Georgia's got the toughest path. Of course, Ohio State, Michigan got to play. It's gonna be very, 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 very interesting.
To answer your question, though, Sean, I think if Michigan loses the game, they're done.
They're out. They got
number 3. That shows a lot about what they've seen about their strength of schedule and what they think about Michigan as a whole. And if they lose to either Penn State or Ohio State, I think Michigan can be done. Right. Now, it'll be interesting if they lose to Penn State and then beat Ohio State. That'll be an interesting scenario. But to me, I don't see that happening. I don't think Penn State, after seeing them against Ohio State, I don't think they got enough in the arsenal to be able to beat Michigan. And at home's going to be a big favor. But to me, I think Michigan is the team that has the most to lose with a loss this upcoming for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And how much of this sign stealing stuff going on with Michigan? They talk about it now, but is this really going to have an impact?
Yeah, you never know at this point. They still put them in, so that's something.
But I think a team we got to talk about for a second is Washington. What do y'all think about their?
That's what I was just about to say. Washington still has to go to USC next week, and they still got to take on Utah and a dangerous-ish Oregon State team who's still right there at the top of the conference, at the top 4 of the conference also. And if you look at Washington's games, teams with competent offenses have been able to score on them. And you talk about going on the road into a night game against USC. Now, it all depends on how can I say this? How beat up is USC mentally? Are they still kind of in it to be like, hey, can we play upset team right now and have something left to play for? Or are they just out of it altogether? It would be interesting. But for a team like Washington that lets people score on them from time to time, and you get in a shootout with USC, that's still a very high-powered offense that you still got to take on. So that could very possibly be a loss in the next week. And I think if they take a loss, I still keep them in the top 10. But I think all that's going to do is switch Oregon and Washington. You're going to move Washington up, and that opens the door for both Bama and Texas for that 6th spot. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out after all of that.
Yeah, it definitely will, man. And, Texas, they're in a precarious situation with Ewers being out. Although their backup looked good this past weekend. I still think Texas is a very, very solid team. I don't know if they beat Bama again, if they play again, and that's even if it's on a neutral site. I don't know if it happens. One thing I saw yesterday was talking about Jalen Milroe. And Lord, I know it. I've been the one to give this dude all kind of a hard time. But from a statistically, the guys, top in the country in regards to efficiency, right? So it's going to be real good. There's certain teams that do still control their own destiny. As a matter of fact, most of these teams really do still control their own destiny. The problem is they all some of these teams play each other, and what's the committee gonna do with losses with these teams in the top 8? When they lose, especially to each other. That's what's going to be really, really interesting to me. So I'm looking forward to seeing it all happen. For a team like Bama this weekend, beating a team like LSU is going to be, of course, they have to have that win if they want to try to win a championship. But just because they beat LSU doesn't necessarily mean they move up a whole lot. So, I mean, movement's not really going to happen for teams that are 6, 7, 8 until we get much closer to the end of the season, right? Mm-hmm. That's when you'll see them make their
without some big losses happen.
When big losses happen in front of them, right? Big wins happen for them and big losses happen in front of them, right? Mm-hmm. So man, like I said, we still got a lot of football to play, But Ohio State being number 1 right now, I'm with you, Drew. I don't know. Georgia's doing too much of playing to the level of their competition. Ohio State has the best player on the field right now, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Michigan, I really want to see them play somebody. Florida State, man, hey, I think they've done their thing already, even though they've had close games. Every team that wins national championship has 1 or 2 close games. You don't go and win national championship and don't end up playing a tough game here or there. So I'm not going to knock Florida State for playing a tough game against Clemson, playing a tough game against Boston College. They won games they're supposed to win. That's what champions do, right? So yeah, I'm looking for Florida State to continue to make noise and continue to creep up as the season goes on, as they continue to win. So, don't sleep on it. Florida State still got, outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., they receiver, the 6'4" monster. Hey, he right there. He right there. Yes, he's just as much of a game changer as Marvin Harrison Jr. is. The quarterback is fire. Hey, I'm just saying. Don't take it out.
To me, I'm right there with you. To me personally, I got Florida State number 2. I got Georgia number 1, Florida State number 2. Then I'm gonna go Ohio State, then Michigan, and I'm right there with everybody in the country when it goes. Washington, you just number 5. You are the weakest undefeated team, and then Oregon is the best 1-loss team. Now, piggybacking off what you said about Texas and Bama, Texas and Bama played again. That game would not end the same. I promise y'all it would not end the same. And for everybody that's going to get on me about that being a Bama fan, if you go look at how impactful those 2 Jalen Milroe turnovers was in flipping that game around, that's where Bama lost the game. And then the second week in the season, the team is almost a brand new team with new coordinators and stuff like that. They had to figure themselves out. They got everything controlled now. So I think, to me, Bama is probably the most dangerous team outside the top 6. Because if they get to that team, I would give Bama the edge over Oregon. I would give Bama the edge over Washington, and I would give Bama the edge right now over Michigan.
Yes, sir.
So I'm thinking serious. So I think it's that serious with Texas. They have to have a healthy Quinn Ewers to be the team that everybody thinks they're going to be. That is such a huge part in there. Why I'm not saying them as being the most dangerous team, but it's going to be very, very interesting how this season is going to play out. And we got a lot of top 10 teams that still got to play each other. I think every team in the top 10 has a chance right now. Right now, everybody has a path.
I was just about to say, Ole Miss is still lurking back there, just waiting. I'd say they're a very interesting team right now to keep an eye on. And another thing is this the spark that Georgia needed to give them the motivation? Be like, all right, they knocking us, they bumping us down now. Hey, let's turn it on. Because we've only seen them play 1 complete game all season. That was the game against Kentucky. Albeit it was Kentucky. That's still the only game that you saw from the opening snap to the end of the game where they just dominated the entire course of the game. So with Georgia taking on Mizzou this weekend, and you got Ole Miss, and you got Tennessee, you got 3 very capable teams that could knock off Georgia. And what happens to them, albeit saying that they've been shaky for the most part of this season, especially in first halves of a lot of their games. What happens to them if they take a chink, they take a loss right now, especially to one of these teams that could jump them and take that place as the number 1 team in the East and go keep Georgia away from going to Atlanta at the end of the year.
Man, look, if Georgia don't make it, because what? Missouri lost to LSU, right? That's their only one loss, right? LSU. If Missouri knocks off Georgia, I got to look at their schedule and see what they have left.
I got it right here. So what you looking for? So
Missouri, the rest of Missouri's schedule. Missouri's schedule
right now, standing right now, Missouri is. Give me 1 second.
Georgia.
They got Georgia, Tennessee,
Yeah.
Florida, Arkansas.
Yep. And the only 2 of those are at Georgia and at Arkansas. They get Tennessee at home and Florida at home.
Okay, so if Mizzou knocks Georgia out,
They'll
I don't
own
know if Georgia can recover from that. Only because of the teams that are trailing, that are coming up. You know what I'm saying? That I mean, again, it's like Georgia loses, what happens to them? The loser of Ohio State, Michigan, what happens to them? You know what I'm saying? So much, but this weekend is very, very, very pivotal to what we're watching right now on television. This weekend is the beginning of the end, if you ask me. It's the precursor to what we're gonna see as the season continues to play itself out. So let's just watch what happens this weekend, because, like I said, if Bama beats LSU, I don't know who Texas has. I don't know if beating LSU is enough for the committee to
Texas
jump.
actually has an interesting matchup. They're at home taking on Kansas State, a ranked Kansas State team that has kind of bounced back since their early losses this earlier in the season.
Okay, yeah. Man, look, Missouri's got a shot. Does it knock Georgia out? No, because if they turn around and beat Bama or Ole Miss, whoever in the SEC championship game, they'll find their way right back in the mix. But I think if they lose to Missouri, I think they end up coming back to what you may want to call the best one-loss team, but that's 5.
Yeah.
Right? That's 5. And you may not leave 5. You may not leave 5. Whoever sits at 5, it really is specific to Georgia specifically, because they would take a loss late in the season. If you're going to lose, we all know this, early losses still give you the opportunity to make it back into the mix the way it's currently constructed with a 14 playoff. Next year, different story. But right now, you take that L early. Georgia can't afford to take one late, I don't believe. Neither can Florida State, right? Neither can Michigan or Ohio State, but they got to play. So, man, hey, Washington, of course, cannot take an L. They take an L, they gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, look, very, very, very interesting scenarios we got going on right now in college.
Yeah, so to me, I think if Michigan or Florida State or Washington lose, they are done.
There's no way they're coming back.
I don't care what point in the season that they're getting back, unless Texas gets another chink in the arm or Bama gets another chink in the arm, where you have 2 lost teams that, of course, are going to jump behind them. But right now, to me, they're in a position where they cannot lose, just because of strength of schedule is going to be huge. Strength of schedule is going to be huge for Florida State and Michigan and Washington. Now, a lot of their strength of schedule is coming in the last few weeks of this season. But like I said earlier, a couple weeks ago in one of our videos, if y'all haven't seen our videos, go check them out. I said in one of the videos that, hey, Washington for the Pac-2, one of those teams are going to have to be undefeated to get in. I don't see one of those teams being one-loss teams getting in. Because at the end of the day, the SEC championship is going to mean so much for teams that the one-loss SEC team, I think, has a spot. Unless we got 4 undefeated teams, at the end of the year. And that's just what I've seen through history of what the college committee puts in there. If Bama makes it through the gauntlet they have and get through the SEC championship and knock off a Georgia team, they're in the playoffs. If Georgia goes in there and wins, if they lose a game and they come back and win the SEC championship, I think Georgia is going to be that one-loss team that gets in there at 4. So you really got to say that some of these teams can't afford no losses. They really can't, and it's going to be tough because we got some head-to-head matches that are going to blow this thing up in the next 4 weeks. So, man, the month of November is going to might be one of the biggest months of November in recent years for what we're looking at right now. And I think it's going to be emphasis. I think it's a lot of motivation for a lot of teams in this ranking right here, because I'm shocked by it. Georgia and teams like that are going to be shocked by it as well, too. So, but I don't know. I got some Ohio State fans that are my friends and stuff like that, and I talk to them all the time about it. I'm like, I don't see y'all. I just don't see where y'all number 1. Not number 1. I get y'all number 2, number 3, but not number 1.
That was surprising. That was definitely surprising.
I just don't see. I mean, okay, cool. The win at Notre Dame, got you. But the game against Penn State wasn't a smooth game. Neither was Notre Dame game. I mean, you got the wins, but those are your 2 biggest wins. Outside of that, your strength of schedule is, to me, is dog. crap. It's just I'm just really not a fan of it. But I've seen Ohio State struggle in ways that if they face a good defensive line, their team is not going to be the same. And I really feel strongly about that. And I'm like, I see some teams in like Florida State, or I think they got players, multiple players that can outstand that right there. I've seen Florida State get wins. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yep.
College football committee gonna have a lot of uproar in the next couple of days about what they just did today. But
they're gonna be like, "Hey, can we get to 12 this year? Because this is the year to have 12 in there." You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If you had 12 right now, it would be relatively interesting. You know what I'm saying? Picking 4 out of what you got right now, because all these teams are. They're again. We said this at the very beginning. There is no clear-cut number one. There is not, and there may not be until the final bell rings. You know what I'm saying? Until they make their way through the bracket, right? I think at that point you will have no choice but to say, all right, I'll go ahead and give it to you because you did it on the field. Right now, no one has done enough against good enough competition to warrant being the absolute number one team by far. So the committee had it tough tonight. But again, I'm a little upset with them about how they did Florida State. Florida State should absolutely be ahead of Michigan. Absolutely be ahead of Michigan. I don't know what they're looking at, but we'll see. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, thank everybody for tuning in. This video will be available for y'all. Go ahead and put some comments in if you want to. Hey, we're gonna be doing a lot of live streams or more live streams, especially coming up in the next couple of weeks. Maybe every Tuesday we'll do another thing like this, kind of get on beforehand, before it gets kicked off. But to make sure that you get notified when we go on, make sure you hit that bell also to get that notification when we go live. But until then, we'll catch y'all later this week with the week 10 predictions. And we'll catch y'all next time.
Bama LSU, baby. Bama LSU. Let's go.
Red college football.